Now, your latest news update from Western Mass News.
Good Tuesday afternoon. I'm Chris Pisano with a look at your headlines. An event being held today in Springfield to raise awareness about a movement meant to avoid any baby abandonment. It comes after a baby was found wrapped in a blanket in a car seat outside of a house Friday. Currently in Massachusetts, infants 7 days or younger can be surrendered at a safe haven location such as police, fire, or hospital without any criminal prosecution. Police continue looking for the mother who may be in need of medical care. Westfield police are investigating an accident on Western Ave this morning that sent one Westfield police officer to the hospital. Police say the officer was working a road construction detail when he was hit by a car. He's listed in stable condition after suffering serious injuries. No word if the driver's facing charges in connection with the incident. And supporters of former President Donald Trump gathered outside of his Mar-a-Lago estate protesting his possible arrest. Trump making the claim this weekend that he expects to be arrested today. There's no evidence that's going to happen, but the Manhattan DA's criminal investigation involving alleged hush money to porn star Stormy Daniels appears to be wrapping up. The grand jury will then decide on any potential charges.
I'm meteorologist Jana Brown with a check of your forecast. We'll start off partly cloudy this evening, and then clouds will build in overnight. That should help keep temperatures in the upper 20s to low 30s. Breezes becoming light and variable to calm. So a chilly night, but milder than the last few. And then we head into Wednesday, and we're still dealing with mild temperatures. Highs look to return to the middle and upper 50s for most of Western Mass, and a few spots back to 60 degrees. However, we are expecting to see a lot more cloud cover around. A blanket of high clouds should linger throughout the day, and we'll have breezes out of the south at about 5 to 15 miles an hour. We're tracking our next round of showers for Thursday. It looks like a shower or two in the morning and then scattered showers later in the afternoon and evening. We look to dry out for Friday, but another system looms for the start of the weekend and may begin as snow or a wintry mix before changing over to rain. And it looks like we'll be blustery but mild to wrap up the weekend.
Stay with Western Mass News on air, online, and on our app throughout the day for breaking news, weather, and exclusive content.